Hey, good morning. We're here this morning in Mighty Christ Ministries. I'm Brother Nick with Jeremy and Tyrus this morning. We're going through the catechism this morning. The Westminster Larger Catechism. You can get it online. It's available. And we're going through this morning the questions 44 to 51. I will be doing the answers, questions. Jeremy will be doing the questions, and Tyrus will be doing the verses.
How does Christ execute the office of a priest?
Christ executes the office of a priest and is once offering himself as sacrifice without spot to God, to be a reconciliation for the sins of his people and making continual intercession for them.
Hebrews 2:17. Therefore, in all things he had to made like his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make propitiation for the sins of the people.
How does Christ execute the office of a king?
Christ executes the office of a king in calling out the world's a people to himself, and give them officers, laws, and censures, by which visibly governs them in bestowing saving grace upon his elect, rewarding their obedience and correcting them in their sins, preserving and supporting them under all their temptations and sufferings, restraining and overcoming all their enemies, and powerfully ordering all things for his own glory and their good, and also to take vengeance on the rest who know not God and obey not the gospel.
Isaiah 33:22. For the Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, the Lord is our king, who will save us.
What was the state of Christ's humiliation?
The state of Christ's humiliation was that low condition wherein he, for our sakes, emptying himself of his glory, took upon him from the form of a servant in his conception and the birth, life, death, and after his death, until his resurrection.
Luke 1:31. And behold, you will conceive in your womb, and bring forth a son, and shall call his name Jesus.
How did Christ humble himself in his conception and birth?
Christ humbled himself in his conception and birth, in that being from all eternity the Son of God, in the bosom of the Father, he was pleased in the fullness of time, becoming the Son of Man, made of a woman of low estate, and to be born of her with diverse circumstances of more than ordinary abasement.
Philippians 4:4. But when the fullness of the time had come, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law.
How did Christ humble himself in his life?
Christ humbled himself in his life by subjecting himself to the law, which he was perfectly fulfilled, and by conflicting with the indigencies of the world, temptations of Satan, and infirmities in his flesh, whether common of the nature of man or particularly accompanying his low condition.
Matthew 5:17. Do not think I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill.
How did Christ humble himself in his death?
Christ humbled himself in his death, in that having been betrayed by Judas, forsaken by his disciples, scorned and rejected by the world, condemned by Pilate, and tormented by his persecutors, having also conflicted with the terrors of death and the powers of darkness, felt and bore the weight of God's wrath. He laid down his life an offering for sin, enduring the painful, shameful, and cursed death of the cross.
Philippians 2:8. And found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even the death of the cross.
Wherein consisted Christ's humiliation after his death?
Christ's humiliation after his death consisted in his being buried and continuing in the state of the dead, and under the power of death till the third day, which has been otherwise expressed in these words, he descended into hell.
Romans 6:9. Knowing that Christ, having been raised from the dead, dies no more. Death no longer has dominion over him.
What was the estate of Christ's exaltation?
The state of Christ's exaltation comprehends his resurrection, ascension, sitting at the right hand of the Father, and is coming again to judge the world.
Mark 16:19. So then after the Lord had spoken to him, he was received up into heaven, and sat down